Another edition of Riding Home as we get ready for a lot of different things. Matt DeBary, Dean Legge, joining you again. This is a longer form video that we talked for a little bit longer than usual on our channel. Matt, a lot of guys have decided to come back to Georgia, and recruiting is, I would say, all but done. I don't know that it's done, but and then you've got a couple of decisions left. I guess Zamir is really the only one that I can think of off the top of my head, and we're waiting to see who wins the national championship. But where is Georgia right now in terms of zooming into this 2021 season?
I think they're off to a great start. You get Devonta Wyatt back, who was one of the first guys to say, "Hey, I have another chance to come back and play again. I'm going to do that." He was a senior, so that was kind of up in the air. Then you had, I think it was James Cook was the next big one. I think JT Daniels might have been before that, but those three guys, then Jordan Davis, those are four big-time players, two of them on the defensive line, a quarterback and a running back, all deciding that they're going to come back, gives Georgia fuel and, extra power, especially on offense, to make a national championship run in 2021. Dean, they had to have JT Daniels back. If he was leaving, then everything is all up in the air again, and who knows what happens. But you got your quarterback back. They needed James Cook or Zamir White to come back. Zamir still has to make a decision, but getting James Cook back is absolutely huge because you needed one of them.
Yeah.
And then if you want to have one of the best defensive lines in college football, you needed Jordan Davis back, a guy who we thought could be a possible first-rounder, maybe a second-rounder. He was dinged up a good bit this year, but you see how dominant he can be when he's in there and he's healthy. He's so tough to block, not only for one guy but for two guys. So really, really big deal. As you said, we're waiting on Zamir. I believe Jamari Sawyer will come back. I don't think we've seen his best ball because I think he's more suited to play guard. We've said that for years. We'll see if someone emerges at left tackle so he can maybe slide in and play the position that fits him the best. But either way, I thought he's been solid at left tackle this year. And a fourth-year Jamari Sawyer, a guy who's a top 10 recruit in the country, he should be outstanding and play his best ball next year. But overall, you have to really, really like the guys coming back, because I'm not sure I would have guessed James Cook and Jordan Davis would come back. I thought the other two had a good shot. But overall, I think it's been a really good January so far for Georgia after winning the Peach Bowl, obviously, and then having these guys come back. And like you said, recruiting, there's probably one defensive back left, Terrion Arnold, who announced yesterday it's going to be down to Georgia, Alabama, and Florida, like we've been reporting the whole time. I think Georgia would love to add him in February. I think they'd welcome him with open arms. If they don't get him, it's not the end of the world, but they need some defensive backs. He'll play safety. They need corners, though. I think they're going to hit the transfer portal there. But overall, there's been a lot of good news for Georgia the past couple weeks.
Yeah, I think so. And I've not reconstructed my board yet. Getting pretty close though, with the guys who've left and so forth. So I think they're stacking out. Mark Schlabach has always done a good job, generally speaking, and there's a lot of preseason, too early top 25s. But I pay attention to Marks because, well, of course, I've known him. He covered Georgia for a while, and I think it's not really sort of this snap judgment thing. I don't know where they'll be ranked. I think they might be in the top 3. I mean, I don't know who. I think Oklahoma. People are going to anoint Oklahoma either the number 1 or 2 team in the country. Clemson, they're losing a lot of. To be ranked in the top 5, I think that will happen for Clemson. Alabama, I think they'll be ranked 1, 2, or 3. And then, but I don't know that there's Alabama's losing a lot, And whenever you make these deep runs like this, you're going to start losing a lot. Obviously, the Gators have lost a lot. So I would not at all be surprised to see Georgia popping in a 1, 2, 3 situation. I'm not sure. Who would you take in front of them?
It's tough to go against Alabama. I know they're losing a lot, but all they do is reload. Bryce Young, I think, is really, really good.
Right.
I didn't think Mac Jones would be this good. He was. So who knows? Bryce Young could come out and just absolutely light it up next year. That wouldn't surprise me. But they're losing a lot, so I do understand not putting them at number 1. Right. Georgia and Oklahoma are the 2 teams that everyone's going to be talking about. They're going to be the 2 probably hyped teams.
More about Oklahoma than Georgia.
Absolutely. Spencer Rattler. He's good, and he got better throughout the year,
right.
And he'll be one of the top guys in the Heisman Trophy race.
I had a guy that I trust a lot said to me the other day, he said, I just don't trust Oklahoma the way that
Yeah,
I just don't trust him. And at
I
some
get it.
well, at some point though, at some stage, I don't know when, but college football is not going to be dominated by Oklahoma, Ohio State, and Clemson. And Ohio State, Clemson, Alabama, Georgia are the only team, and LSU are the only teams who have played for a national championship since 2015. So, I mean, I mentioned LSU. LSU is certainly a team that I think has found their quarter. I mean, it's got to be Max Johnson, right? I mean, how can you go back to the other guy?
You can't.
I don't think
You can't.
so.
Max isn't one to turn the ball over, and it's nice to have a quarterback who can make all the throws.
Yeah.
But they need a guy who's not turning the football over next year if they want to, make it anywhere. But I think Georgia, Oklahoma, and Notre Dame specifically are the three teams trying to break through and get to
Oh, Notre
where
Dame. Yeah, I see what you're
oh,
saying.
to where Alabama is and Clemson and Ohio State. And I think all three are kind of right there, a little tier down. Maybe is this the year Georgia takes that next step? I mean, they have the talent and the roster to do it, or is it Oklahoma who finally gets a playoff win? At least Georgia's won a game in the playoff. I mean, that's a big deal. Everyone counts Final Fours in basketball.
Well,
It's a big deal. And the championship game, people remember that forever. Georgia makes it to the national championship game, they lose, and everyone wants to forget about it. At least Georgia has a playoff win. Notre Dame still needs theirs. Who knows when that's going to come? They get
no.
kind of drilled every time they get there, and so does Oklahoma. They need to get to that step where they at least win a game in the playoffs. Georgia's been there. They're going to have to win the whole thing.
Well, yeah, when you come a snap from winning the national championship, I mean,
Those are going to be the expectations. And they
yeah,
have been ever
I don't
since.
think there should be any apologies from Kirby and company about expectations. I mean, it's what it is. That's what you're paid $7 or $8 million a year for at Georgia. I mean, there should
And
be
they put the
expectations.
program there for the
Yeah.
expectations. They got it to the level where the
Look,
expectations are now.
if you don't want pressure, if you don't want expectations, there are a lot of places that you can play college sports. I was not good enough to play at a place where you would have expectations that to where people paid attention on television to what you were doing. So you can go to other places. If you're going to play at Georgia and Oklahoma, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Clemson, Alabama, Florida State, then people are going to have things to say about what you're doing and so forth. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. That's what this is. But I mean, when you come into this season, Georgia really should be extremely excited to me now that that Clemson game is on the schedule because I don't see Clemson losing another game. Now, I know they have lost games in the past. They had no business losing. So that could happen. But I don't see anyone on their schedule until maybe North Carolina if they were to play them in their championship game. North Carolina's another team to watch, Matt. I mean, I think North Carolina definitely is going to be in the top 10 coming in this season, although they're losing a lot of guys. There's a lot of teams that are losing, quote, a lot of guys. And we saw this after the 2013 season, I think it was, where you had a lot of quarterbacks, Aaron Murray, Johnny Manziel. I'm thinking of other guys. I can't remember off the top of my head. But the SEC went from having a lot of really good quarterbacks to none. And right now you're going from, I mean, who would be first string SEC quarterback right now coming into 21?
Coming into 21, Kellen Mond is gone. Obviously, Kyle Trask is gone. Mac Jones is gone.
Right.
It ain't Bo Nix. It might have to be JT Daniels.
I think it would be JT Daniels, and I don't know that it wouldn't be that Max Johnson's your number 3 if you want to put Bo Nix up there. I mean, I don't know who Arkansas is going to start. They're going to play Georgia. I don't know who Tennessee is going to start.
It's all about the
do you
quarterback.
even want to talk about?
Let's
Let's talk about Tennessee for a second because I mean I don't even know if Jeremy's going to be there in the fall. This is not looking good.
Yeah. What the allegations, or just the team in general, or
Yeah,
both?
the allegations. Yeah, from inside the department, it seems like.
Yeah, it's all. It seems like they're all trying to take the program down together. They're all pointing fingers inside of the building, inside the athletic department. He's doing this. He's doing this. They're all
can't happen.
Kind of telling on each other.
Yeah, can't happen.
It's so discombobulated up there. I guess we saw that a little bit in Athens with Mark Richt and Jeremy Pruitt 5-6 years ago, but they're not in a position where that's going to be happening anymore. But again, I thought Jeremy Pruitt was a solid hire for them considering who they were going after at the time, and he was like their 10th choice.
Yeah.
But it's obviously not working, and
No.
I'm kind of leaning on him not being there
What
in 7 months.
that would be Hugh Freeze, who would probably be a person that would be looked at to take that position over, was a guy who was like, oh, before, like this time of the year, some sort of bizarre, you're fired in the off season kind of deal. That's strange, but
Better do it quick, though. I mean, if you're gonna fire your guy and find someone new, they better get on it as soon as
it's
possible. You
too
can't do it
late.
in February and March. I mean, yeah,
It's
it
it's too
already
late.
feels like it's
Yeah,
too
it's
late.
too
So
late. I don't know. I was looking through some old television ratings from not that long from the '90s, and Tennessee was such a big deal at the time. They played in the '95 or '6 Citrus Bowl against Ohio State. I think that was a matchup of number 3 and 4 in that game, and Tennessee won it. And that was a massive ratings bonanza for Tennessee. They growing up, and I mean, I guess teenage years are growing up. Growing up and going through college, it would have been hard to think in the '90s that Tennessee would be this bad for this long. But they just don't. They don't scare anybody.
no,
They need to start over.
it makes sense why they're in this spot because
It does
to me, I
now.
cover recruiting
Yeah.
because it all goes back to that, and
Yeah.
they had to do most of the recruiting, get their kids from out of state.
Yeah.
And when you've got a guy like Kirby Smart trying to lock up the state and get the guys, you can't go to Georgia as often, can't go to South Carolina. If you can't recruit Florida or maybe some teams in the Midwest, you're going to really, really struggle. So, yeah, in the 90s, I guess it would have been hard to think that. But now, looking back on it, yeah, I guess you can see, especially when you don't hire the right guy. Too. And
Well,
they
I
haven't
think
hired the right guy in a long time.
I think maybe the hot take of this is that the mistake was letting Lane Kiffin get out of there, because then you had 3 coaches in 3 years. It was not working with Phil Fulmer.
Why did Derek Dooley get the job?
I don't know the answer to that specifically, but I think we have to look at what Tennessee is, which is they're the United Kingdom of the SEC. They're a once great power. That's not what they used to be, and they got their power from all across, places other than in the UK. I mean, India, South Africa, all across the world with the United Kingdom. And in Tennessee's case, they just, they really struck gold. They were good for a while. They certainly weren't bad, but now they've kind of regressed into the last. If you look at the 40 years plus that I've been alive, they really did have a golden era of 10 years in the 90s. Georgia people used to talk about the golden era of the 80s. Georgia's way better than they were in the 80s now. I mean,
They're a complete team.
it's a complete
No.
program that's not even close
Yeah.
to what it was in the 80s. I mean, they haven't lost 4 games. They lost 4 games in 13. Have they lost 4 games this last 10 years besides that?
I don't think so. And have expectations for national championships? Was that in the early 80s too?
No.
Maybe for a couple years, they're like
You-
it's
you
national
know,
championship or bust,
In talking,
like it is now.
In talking with Gary Stoken runs the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl and Chick-fil-A kickoff games. And Gary Stoken's done a heck of a job in taking that from a bowl game that really was not great. It was a perfectly adequate game. It became a thriller, and now it is it's a premier football game in the country. But Gary, when we were talking, was talking about how college football is not a regional sport anymore. It's a national sport. It's a sport where people in Georgia watch what's going on with Ohio State and Michigan. They watch Texas, Oklahoma, and so the rest of the country watches Georgia, Florida now. And you had that to some degree, Matt, back in the day. But I was actually talking to Tim Tucker the other day, the reporter at the AJC, who's really done a very good job for a long time on the business of sport in Atlanta. And we were talking about all of that, and it occurred to me when I was talking to him about Georgia, Florida, that the 19 game is, from my understanding and my records, is the most watched Georgia, Florida game ever. That's 2019. And there are more people, so there are more people to watch, but the importance of the sport has skyrocketed since the playoff occurred. And we're going to see now Monday's numbers won't be great like they should have been, but you're going to see this grow further and further. So Georgia, Clemson for sure, because Alabama has always been good. Georgia sort of has always been good. Clemson's hitting it right when you want to, because I can assure you, if they were having the 2000s during this past time, nobody'd be talking. It'd be South Carolina, or they'd be. I don't even know who a good comparison is. I mean, that's a good program, but they've struck gold the last 5 years, and it's the 5 years that
Florida State being down too.
Oh my gosh! I mean, the ACC has got to get it together, and I not they won't. Do you think
Clemson might run that conference for another decade? I mean,
not if Mac
Dabo's
Brown
going to keep that going.
Yeah,
We've seen them lose.
yeah, but they've not
how
lost
old
the
is Mac
league.
Brown?
He's old, but North Carolina is the one place maybe that they almost never, don't have their S together. They always seem to know what they're doing. It's a big state school. Miami's a private school, man. They might not ever recover from being a disaster. Florida State, we'll see.
They're trying.
Real trouble
They're
financially.
trying.
Florida State. Florida State needs 2 seasons in a row that are good, and then they'll be back. But they're not like
it still
Florida.
feels like they're far away from being back. Though.
They need to.
That'll be a
man.
program that might get it together before
think about
Tennessee or Michigan.
Florida State. Well, Michigan's got no excuse. I mean, there's just not that many good teams in that league, and
They're just not relevant.
They don't matter. I mean, Michigan better watch it, or they're going to become Tennessee, and it's not the same though. I mean, Tennessee doesn't have the resources even that Michigan has. Michigan's got Detroit. It's got the upper Midwest where they really can. Detroit is in Michigan. Knoxville, Nashville, Memphis. Memphis may as well be in Arkansas with how hard it is for Tennessee to recruit. And there's just not that many people in Tennessee. I mean, Michigan's one of the largest states in the union. There's plenty of kids. So, I mean, USC has
They have the pedigree and the history.
Yeah, they
too.
do. I mean, they do. And USC out west has no excuse. And there's so many schools that are not taking advantage of their situation. So, in Georgia, Alabama, LSU, Florida, and to some degree Texas A&M, they all have the resources right there in their backyard. The money is there. I mean, in terms of comparing the schools I just compared, and this is not all, people kind of start rolling their eyes and their eyes glaze over. They don't understand what I'm talking about. But the endowment at the University of Georgia is double what it is at Clemson. The endowment at Florida is double what it is at Clemson. So the money is double what it is at places like that. It's not the same. So, Texas A&M has a huge endowment, they don't have issues. You can say the same thing for Texas. Well, Michigan has no excuse either. Same thing with SC. So all these places that have just dozens of kids that play there, USC, the problem that the Pac-12 has is they don't have a brand right now. They are just, no one's thinking about going out there to play football. Jarvis Jones played at USC.
They're not getting kids from Georgia like they used to, and they probably won't for a while.
No, I don't think so.
But I do feel like USC took a step forward this year.
I agree with that.
But they should always be a top 10 program. They should always be a top 10 program. There's no reason for Texas with their resources not to. I feel like Texas took a step forward, even though they lost like 4 games. I feel like they're used to losing 4 or 5 every year the past decade. So it's not like losing 3 or 4 games is a travesty to them. I mean, that should be a small step forward. You might hate to say it, but it's true.
They can't
but
keep
I do
losing
think
to
that
Texas
Lane Kiffin
Christian.
is a guy who can get that thing rolling. Yeah, you can't lose to Baylor. You can't lose to Kansas State, Texas Christian, Oklahoma State. Texas shouldn't be losing any of them.
Well, you said Lane Kiffin. You meant to say Steve Sarkisian.
Yes, that's what I meant
I
to say.
I, I don't I
You
am
got a bona fide play caller.
yeah.
I mean,
I
that's
I
step
am
number
not going to
one. Get a guy
disagree.
who knows what he's doing.
Yeah, he definitely. Well, okay, so and I don't know what the future of Dan Mullen is, but I mean, I
What a
think
character this year.
yeah. I think the difference between, and you can say what you want to about Dabo Swinney, and there's plenty to say, but Dabo, Nick Saban, Kirby. I think we can certainly say Ryan Day at this stage, even 2 years into it. Lincoln Riley. Those guys know how to run programs. There's a difference between running a program and being a very good coach. Dan Mullen is a very good coach. I don't know if Dan Mullen knows how to run a full program the way that he knows how to get ready for one game. And that's
Well, he doesn't because recruiting is
right.
part of that, and he's not a great recruiter. So he's a solid X's and O's guy, and he has shown the ability to develop quarterbacks. He knows what he's doing there, but he's not a get after it recruiter like Kirby Smart is, and the rest of his staff and other coaches around the league.
They needed to make a change on defense, and they didn't. I mean, I'm not one of these guys that screams and yells about Todd Grantham. Some of that I think is overdone, but it wasn't working. Like and that's the part of running a program that's so critical. You got to run the program. You can't just
Yeah. Mark Richt didn't seem like he liked firing guys.
well,
And I think Dan Mullen's kind of the same way.
Mark's issue was that he got out of the business of running the program, and
He
that
delegated a little too
way
much,
too
and it came
much
back
to
to, it came back to bite him in
Jeremy
the ass.
Pruitt, who definitely cannot run a
Yeah.
program. I think Mark Stoops up at Kentucky has done as good a job of running that program as you can do, and at Kentucky. And when you see them with their win against Indiana, against who was it? It wasn't Indiana. Mississippi beat Indiana.
Yes.
Whoever UK beat NC State, a ranked
Yeah.
team who is not
Bailey Hockman, baby.
well, and now he's on to the fifth school or fourth school. He's going to be a fifth-year senior going to another school. That's a lot of moving around for him, and I just this
That's college football today.
it is college football, but the steadiness of Alabama, the steadiness of Georgia. So Georgia, Alabama, and I think someone else are the only, and it's I think it might be Ohio State, are the only schools that have won three or more New Year's Six bowls, which is amazing because I think Clemson's won three, but I mean three different ones because I think Clemson's path has come through the Orange Bowl a couple of times, and they've never won in the Sugar Bowl. So Kirby and them have done a great job. I mean, they've won the Rose Bowl, the Sugar Bowl, the Peach Bowl. I mean, all they're, quote, lacking here are the Cotton, Orange, and Fiesta. And my suspicion is, I think I don't know what the semis are this year, but my suspicion is that they will get those bowls one of these days. I think he's developed this. This was the worst situation that Kirby's been in so far at Georgia. This was worse than 2016 because they
This past offseason with
yeah,
COVID and quarterback situation.
yeah, both.
Yeah.
No spring ball. This could be a different Georgia. This could be a more. They're going to have to be to get ready for Clemson, but this could be a more ready to go team than we've seen in a little bit of time. Maybe since the 18 team got ready, that 18 team shot out pretty quick.
It's easy to look at this offense, Dean, and say, oh, and get excited about it, especially with Todd Monken.
Right.
Is the offensive line the biggest weakness going into the spring right now? You've got your quarterback, you've got your running backs, maybe with Zamir coming back, you've got tight ends, you've got receivers. Is it all going to come down to the offensive line to see how good this offense can go?
Well, if that's the case,
that's how I see it right now.
Well, if that's the case, they'll be all right. I mean, they don't have exactly a lot of games they can lose either, Georgia. I mean, you look at Clemson, they could lose, certainly. Florida, maybe Auburn. I don't know if they could lose at Tennessee or not. If Jamari comes, Trey Hill leaving means you got to find a center, or you got to find your center, whoever that person may be. And
And they've got quality options. They really do.
they have plenty of options.
Yeah.
Schaefer's coming. Schaefer's leaving, right? Schaefer was a senior, and that
Now
was
he's coming back though.
it. Okay.
He announced yesterday.
That's right. I'm
So
sorry.
there's one of your guards.
Well, the question is, who are your tackles? You've got McClendon as one tackle, correct? So he could kick over to left. You had Truss, who played tackle. Erickson has been a center lately. Warren has, hasn't he? Am I wrong there?
Yeah. Yeah.
The thing at Georgia has been, who of the guys who have started a little bit is ready to start a lot. That's what it feels like to me. With Jamari and McClendon, you have two guys. Didn't Jamari play left tackle
All year.
Why did they move him for the bowl game? What?
I think they wanted. Cleveland was out, so they moved Schaefer to right guard. Left guard was open, and I think that's where his best football is. I've seen him. I saw him, covered him his whole high school career.
Right.
I looked at him as a 5-star guard. He just doesn't have the length to be tackle. And you've got this giant Xavier Truss who's been around for a little bit now. You want to see what he can do at tackle. That's why you recruited him from Rhode Island, see what he can do.
Yeah.
So I think they gave him a shot, and he struggled a little bit. But on the Zamir White touchdown run off the edge, Xavier put his guy on the ground. So there's potential there. But ideally, you want someone to emerge at left tackle so you can move Jamari in at guard. So you have two guards who have been one's on their 4th year in Jamari, and one's on their 5th year in Justin. Find your center, quality options there. Warren McClendon was freshman All-American at right tackle this year as a redshirt freshman. He'll be back. His 3rd year should be pretty good too. Find your left tackle. This could be a very, very good group.
Well, let's talk about that more the next time that we talk. Dean Legge, Matt DeBary, Riding Home. Thanks for watching. Make sure you click the playlists that are up there, and we'll see you over on the website.